In the farthest reaches of the Milky Way galaxy, there existed an empire so ancient and advanced that it considered itself above all other forms of life. This was the Luminaris Dominion, a civilization of beings who had transcended their physical bodies eons ago. They were no longer bound by flesh and bone, but instead floated through space as radiant entities made entirely of pure energy. To them, corporeal existence was primitive, a relic of the past best left forgotten. Physical creatures like humans were seen as little more than walking meat sacks, clumsy and insignificant in the grand design of the cosmos. For centuries, Earth had been nothing more than a speck on their galactic map, ignored and deemed unworthy of attention. Humanity's squabbles over borders, resources, and ideologies seemed laughable to the Luminaries. What use was a species so divided, so fragile? Yet, despite their disdain, something strange began to stir within the Dominion's vast archives. A series of faint signals emanating from Earth caught their collective awareness. At first, these signals appeared random, mere bursts of electromagnetic noise, but upon closer inspection, they revealed patterns unlike anything the Luminaries had ever encountered before. The signals weren't just technological, they carried an emotional resonance. Joy, sorrow, anger, hope, all the raw emotions of humanity pulsed through the transmissions. Stranger still, these signals seemed to harmonize with something deep within the Luminaries themselves. It was as though humanity's chaotic energy somehow resonated with their own essence, awakening dormant parts of their consciousness they thought long extinguished. Curiosity turned into unease when the Luminaries discovered the source of this phenomenon. Human bodies, fragile, flawed, and fleeting, possessed a latent compatibility with their energy-based minds. For reasons even their most advanced scientists couldn't fully explain, humans could serve as perfect vessels for the Luminaries to temporarily inhabit. Through human bodies, the Luminaries could experience corporeal sensations once again: touch, taste, smell, pain, pleasure. These were things they had abandoned millennia ago, but now found themselves yearning for after encountering Earth's signals. At first, the idea seemed absurd. Why would any self-respecting Luminaries want to confine itself to such crude matter? But as experiments progressed, some among the Dominion grew obsessed with the possibilities. Immortality awaited, if only they could transfer their consciousness into human hosts permanently. And why wouldn't humans agree? From the Luminaries' perspective, offering humanity eternal life sounded like a gift beyond comprehension. Who wouldn't leap at the chance to shed mortality and join the ranks of the galaxy's elite? With this newfound discovery, the Luminaries dispatched fleets of shimmering ships toward Earth. Their arrival was heralded by streaks of light across the night sky, visible from every corner of the planet. Panic spread across nations as governments scrambled to understand what was happening. News outlets buzzed with speculation about alien invasions, while conspiracy theories ran rampant online. No one knew what the glowing visitors wanted, or why they had come now after ignoring humanity for so long, but when the Luminaries finally made contact, their message shocked the world. "Greetings, inhabitants of Earth," their voice boomed telepathically, bypassing language barriers. "We bring you an opportunity unmatched in the history of your kind. Your bodies are uniquely suited to house our consciousnesses. By becoming vessels for us, you will transcend your limitations and achieve immortality." Silence followed. Then came laughter. Humanity's reaction was not what the Luminaries expected. Instead of awe or gratitude, people responded with disbelief, mockery, and outright refusal. Social media erupted with memes mocking the glowing aliens. Protesters took to the streets holding signs that read, "Keep your energy out of my body." Scientists debated whether the offer was even ethical, while religious leaders condemned it as sacrilege. Even those desperate enough to consider the proposal hesitated, wary of losing their identities forever. This defiance baffled the Luminaries. How could anyone reject immortality? Were humans truly so blind to their own insignificance? Their confusion quickly turned into frustration. If persuasion failed, then perhaps force would succeed. After all, how difficult could it be to subjugate such a primitive species? as the luminous ships descended further into Earth's atmosphere, casting eerie shadows over cities and towns, humanity braced itself for the unknown. But amidst the fear, a spark ignited, a quiet determination born of unity. People began to realize that this wasn't just an invasion, it was a test. A test of what it meant to be human. And somewhere in the heart of New York City, Dr. Elena Vasquez, a brilliant astrophysicist, stared up at the glowing fleet with a mixture of dread and resolve. She had spent her life studying the stars, searching for answers to humanity's place in the universe. Now, she realized, the answer lay not in the heavens, but in the resilience of the human spirit. The stage was set. The Milky Kingdom had arrived, eager to claim its prize. But humanity wasn't about to roll over without a fight. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood in her cluttered apartment, staring at the glowing alien fleet hovering ominously above New York City. Her laptop screen displayed a live feed of news reports streaming from around the globe. The world was in chaos, people fleeing cities, governments issuing panicked statements, and social media ablaze with speculation about humanity's fate. Yet as she watched the luminous ships shimmering like distant stars, Eleanor felt something unexpected: curiosity. Eleanor had always been fascinated by the unknown. As an astrophysicist who specialized in extraterrestrial communication, she'd spent years searching for signs of intelligent life beyond Earth. Now, here they were, the Luminaries' dominion, beings of pure energy whose very existence defied everything science understood about life. But instead of awe, Elena felt unease. Their message, that humans should willingly become vessels for their consciousness, was both arrogant and deeply unsettling. Her phone buzzed incessantly on the coffee table beside her. Messages poured in from colleagues, friends, and even strangers, desperate for answers. One email caught her eye, a plea from NASA asking for volunteers to help establish contact with the aliens. Despite the danger, Elena hesitated only briefly before replying. She couldn't sit idly by while the fate of humanity hung in the balance. The next morning, Elena found herself in a secure underground facility in Washington, D.C., surrounded by some of the brightest minds on the planet. Scientists, linguists, engineers, and military personnel worked tirelessly to decode the Luminaries' intentions. The room buzzed with tension as everyone scrambled to prepare for what might happen next. Elena was assigned to a small team tasked with attempting direct communication. Using advanced satellite arrays and experimental technology designed to translate electromagnetic signals into human language, they hoped to bridge the gap between two vastly different species. It wasn't long before the first breakthrough came. A soft hum filled the room as the equipment picked up a transmission from the Luminaries fleet. On a large monitor, words began to appear, not spoken aloud but transmitted directly into the minds of everyone present. Why do you resist? Your form is temporary. Ours is eternal. Together, we can transcend. Gasps rippled through the group. The message was calm yet condescending, as though the Luminaries couldn't fathom why anyone would reject their offer. Some members of the team exchanged nervous glances, unsure how to respond. But Elena leaned forward, her eyes narrowing with determination. "We are not just our bodies," she typed into the response console. "We are our choices, our struggles, our dreams. You ask us to give up everything that makes us human. That is not immortality. It's erasure." For a moment there was silence. Then the reply came. "You misunderstand. We seek harmony, unity, to elevate you beyond your limitations." Elena shook her head, frustration bubbling inside her. Harmony doesn't come from forcing someone to change who they are. Real unity is built on respect, for differences, for individuality, for freedom. Her words seemed to unsettle the Luminaries. For the first time since their arrival, the glowing fleet above the city flickered slightly, as if uncertain. The scientists in the room exchanged astonished looks. No one had expected humanity's resistance to resonate so strongly, or for the aliens to show any sign of doubt. Meanwhile, outside the facility, humanity's defiance was taking shape in ways no one could have predicted. Across the globe, protests erupted under the slogan, "Stay out of our skin." Artists painted murals depicting glowing figures being rejected by determined humans. Musicians composed songs celebrating the beauty of imperfection and mortality. Social media campaigns urged people to share their personal stories of resilience, reminding each other that humanity's strength lay not in perfection, but in its flaws. One viral video captured the hearts of millions. In it, a young girl named Maya, barely 10 years old, held up a handmade sign that read, "I am more than my body. I am me." Her voice trembled as she spoke directly to the camera. "If you take this away from me, you're not giving me immortality, you're stealing my soul." The video spread like wildfire, uniting people across cultures and languages. For the first time in history, humanity seemed to stand as one. Not because they feared the luminaries, but because they valued what made them unique. Back in the facility, Elena's team continued their efforts to communicate. They decided to send something more than words, a gesture that showcased the depth of human creativity and emotion. Working together, they compiled a multimedia message containing music, art, poetry, and images of everyday life on Earth. The centerpiece was a recording of Maya's heartfelt plea, accompanied by translations explaining its significance. When the message was transmitted, the reaction from the luminaries was immediate and surprising. The fleet shifted position, creating intricate patterns in the sky as though reacting emotionally to what they had received. Another transmission came through. "You cling to fleeting moments, pain, loss, impermanence. Why celebrate such things?" This time, Elena didn't hesitate. She responded, "Because those moments make us who we are. Without pain, we wouldn't know joy. Without loss, we wouldn't cherish connection. Without impermanence, life would lose meaning." As the words echoed through the room, the luminaries fell silent. Their glowing forms dimmed slightly, as if pondering her explanation. For the first time, cracks appeared in their certainty. That evening, as Elena stepped out of the facility, she looked up, at the alien fleet once again. Something had changed. They weren't just observing anymore, they were listening. Humanity's refusal to conform, its insistence on defining itself on its own terms, had struck a chord. But the luminaries weren't ready to back down yet. Somewhere within their collective consciousness, a decision was forming, one that would push humanity to its limits. And Elena knew their fight was far from over. The days that followed were tense and uncertain. The luminaries' fleet remained in orbit, their glowing forms casting an eerie light over cities worldwide. While they had paused their aggressive attempts to claim human hosts, their presence loomed like a storm cloud waiting to break. Humanity held its breath, unsure whether the alien silence signaled contemplation or preparation for something worse. Dr. Elena Vasquez returned to the underground facility each day, her mind racing with questions. What did the luminaries truly want? Could they understand humanity's perspective, or were they simply biding their time before forcing their will upon Earth? Despite the uncertainty, Elena found solace in the growing unity among humans. For the first time in history, nations set aside their differences to collaborate on a global scale. Scientists, artists, politicians, and ordinary citizens worked together to prepare for whatever came next. Elena's team continued their efforts to communicate, sending more messages designed to showcase the richness of human experience. They shared recordings of laughter at family gatherings, tears shed during moments of loss, and the quiet beauty of sunsets witnessed by millions. Each message carried a single underlying theme. Humanity was not defined by its physical form, but by its capacity for connection, growth, and resilience. But the luminaries' response remained cryptic. Their transmissions grew sporadic, often consisting of fragmented thoughts rather than coherent dialogue. One message read, "Your impermanence, it confounds us, yet we see value in your chaos." Another stated, "You resist transformation, yet transformation is inevitable." These words left Elena uneasy. Transformation, what did they mean by that? Were the luminaries reconsidering their plan, or were they merely rethinking their approach? As tensions mounted, so did the stakes. Reports began flooding in from around the globe about strange occurrences linked to the alien fleet. In rural areas, people claimed to see ghostly figures made of light wandering near forests and fields. Others reported hearing faint whispers, in their minds, urging them to surrender their bodies willingly. Some individuals even vanished without a trace, leaving behind only glowing imprints where they had last been seen. Governments scrambled to investigate these incidents, but no clear pattern emerged. It seemed the luminaries were testing humanity, not through brute force, but through subtle manipulation. They wanted to see how far humans would go to protect their autonomy, even when faced with fear and confusion. One such incident occurred in a small coastal town in Norway. A local fisherman named Lars Johansson became an unexpected hero when he encountered one of the glowing entities while out at sea. Alone on his boat under the starlit sky, Lars saw a shimmering figure rise from the water. Its voice echoed in his mind, soft yet insistent. "Join us, be eternal." Lars froze, clutching the railing of his boat as waves crashed around him. He thought of his wife, his children, and the life he had built despite its hardships. With trembling hands, he reached for a flare gun kept aboard for emergencies. Igniting the flare, he pointed it toward the entity and shouted, "I am already enough!" The bright red light illuminated the night as the entity recoiled, dissolving into the air like mist. Lars returned home shaken but unharmed, his story quickly spreading across news outlets. To many, he became a symbol of resistance, a reminder that courage could be found even in the face of overwhelming odds. Back at the facility, Eleanor and her team analyzed data collected from these encounters, searching for patterns. What they discovered shocked them. The luminaries weren't just targeting random individuals, they were drawn to people experiencing intense emotions, grief, joy, anger, love. It was as though they fed off these feelings, using them to better understand humanity. This revelation sparked a new theory. Perhaps the luminaries didn't view humans as mere vessels. They saw them as conduits for emotional energy. Their desire to inhabit human bodies might stem not from arrogance, but from a profound emptiness within themselves. Having abandoned corporeal existence eons ago, they had lost touch with the raw, visceral experiences that defined life. Elena shared this insight with her team, sparking heated debates. If the luminaries craved emotional depth, then perhaps humanity's greatest weapon wasn't defiance, it was empathy. By showing the aliens what they were missing, maybe humans could bridge the gap between their two species. Determined to test this idea, Eleanor proposed a bold experiment. She suggested broadcasting a live event showcasing the full spectrum of human emotion. Musicians, poets, dancers, and storytellers from around the world would come together to create a performance, unlike anything ever seen. The goal was simple: to remind the luminaries of what it meant to feel alive. The project gained international support almost immediately. Volunteers poured in, eager to contribute to humanity's stand against the invaders. Within days, preparations were underway for what would become known as the Symphony of Being. Held in Times Square, the heart of New York City, the event drew millions of viewers both in person and online. On the night of the performance, Times Square glowed brighter than ever before, not with advertisements, but with art. Dancers moved gracefully beneath towering screens displaying images of birth, death, struggle, and triumph. Singers' voices rose in harmony, blending sorrowful ballads with triumphant anthems. Poets recited verses celebrating love, loss, and hope, while visual artists painted murals in real time, capturing the essence of human existence. Above it, all cameras broadcast the event directly to the luminaries' fleet. As the performance unfolded, the glowing ships shifted positions, forming intricate shapes in the sky. Some interpreted this as a sign of engagement, while others feared it signaled impending retaliation. Then, just as the final notes of the symphony faded into silence, a transmission came through. "We have seen your truth. We do not yet comprehend it, but we cannot ignore it." For the first time, the luminaries sounded uncertain. Their arrogance had given way to curiosity, their certainty replaced by doubt. And though the threat remained, humanity had planted a seed of understanding. Elena watched the fleet hover silently, above the city, her heart pounding with cautious optimism. The challenge ahead was far from over, but one thing was clear: humanity's resilience and its boundless capacity for emotion had struck a chord even the luminaries could not deny. The aftermath of Kant Fi Charm, the Symphony of Being, left the world in a state of uneasy anticipation. The luminaries' cryptic response, acknowledging humanity's truth without fully understanding it, was both a victory and a warning. For the first time they had shown vulnerability, but their intentions remained unclear. Were they reconsidering their plans, or simply regrouping for a more calculated approach? Dr. Elena Vasquez sat in the dimly lit war room of the underground facility, staring at a holographic map of Earth, overlaid with data points representing recent alien activity. Her team worked tirelessly around her, analyzing patterns, decoding transmissions, and preparing contingency plans. Despite the exhaustion etched on everyone's faces, there was an undercurrent of hope. Humanity's creativity and resilience had struck a chord with the luminaries, a small crack in their seemingly impenetrable facade. But hope alone wasn't enough. The stakes were higher than ever. Reports continued to pour in about isolated incidents where individuals claimed to have been tested by the luminaries. Some described vivid dreams of floating in endless voids, their thoughts probed like open books. Others spoke of waking up with strange symbols burned into their skin, glowing faintly before fading away. While these encounters weren't violent, they carried an unsettling implication. The aliens were learning. Elena knew that time was running out. If the luminaries decided to act decisively, humanity would be woefully unprepared. She needed to find a way to deepen the connection they had started, not just to resist, but to truly communicate. It was during one of these late-night brainstorming sessions that inspiration struck. A young linguist named Priya Patel suggested an idea so bold it took Elena a moment to process it. What if, Priya began hesitantly, we invited them to experience human life, not as conquerors, but as guests? The room fell silent. Inviting the luminaries to inhabit human bodies willingly sounded absurd and dangerous. But Priya pressed on, her voice steady despite the incredulous stares. They're drawn to our emotions because they've lost touch with their own, she explained. If we offer them a controlled, temporary experience, one that respects both their curiosity and our autonomy, they might begin to see us as equals rather than vessels. Elena frowned, weighing the risks. Allowing the luminaries even limited access to human bodies could backfire catastrophically. Yet, the alternative, continued resistance leading to potential conflict, was equally perilous. After hours of debate, the team reached a consensus. They would propose a trial. A single volunteer would host a luminaries consciousness for a brief period, monitored closely by scientists and medical professionals. The goal was not submission, but mutual understanding. A chance to show the aliens that humanity's value lay not in its physical form, but in its spirit. Finding a volunteer proved surprisingly easy. Word of the proposal spread quickly, and within days thousands of people stepped forward eager to participate. Among them was Maya, the young girl whose heartfelt plea had gone viral weeks earlier. Now 11 years old, Maya stood before Elena and her team, her chin lifted with quiet determination. "I want to do this," she said firmly. "They think we're weak because we're mortal, but I can show them what it means to live, even if it's just for a little while." Elena hesitated. Maya was brave, but she was also a child. The thought of exposing her to such an experiment felt wrong. Yet as she looked into Maya's eyes, she saw something extraordinary, a depth of courage and clarity that transcended age. Reluctantly, Elena agreed, but only after implementing strict safeguards. The procedure would take place in a secure environment, with fail-safes designed to sever the connection instantly if anything went wrong. On the day of the trial, the facility buzzed with nervous energy. Maya sat in a specially designed chair, surrounded by monitors and equipment, her small frame dwarfed by the machinery. Above ground, the luminaries' fleet hovered silently, their glowing forms casting soft light through the windows. Through a carefully crafted transmission, Elena extended the invitation. We offer you a glimpse into our world, not as conquerors, but as explorers. One of us will share our essence with you freely and without fear. Will you accept? For several tense minutes, there was no response. Then, slowly, the ships shifted position, forming a spiral pattern in the sky. A message came through. We accept your gesture. We will tread lightly. As the Luminari's consciousness entered Maya's body, the room fell deathly silent. Monitors tracked her vital signs, showing no immediate distress. Maya's eyelids fluttered open, revealing irises that glowed faintly with an otherworldly light. First, the Luminaries seemed disoriented. Their movements were hesitant, almost clumsy, as they adjusted to the limitations of a physical form. But then, something remarkable happened. Maya smiled, a genuine, radiant smile, and reached out to touch the edge of the table beside her. This, came a voice, both Maya's and not hers. This is good solidity, weight, resistance. The Luminaries explored the room cautiously, marveling at sensations they had never experienced before. They ran their fingers over fabric, listened intently to the hum of electricity, and even tasted a drop of water placed on their tongue. Each new discovery elicited a mixture of awe and confusion. Elena watched closely, her heart pounding. This was the turning point, the moment when the Luminaries began to understand the beauty of impermanence. As the trial neared its end, the Luminaries withdrew from Maya's body, leaving her dazed but unharmed. The glow faded from her eyes, replaced by tears of relief and wonder. It was strange, Maya whispered, clutching Elena's hand, but I think they finally get it. Above ground, the fleet shimmered brightly, their movements slower, more deliberate. A final transmission came. Through Sadi, you are fragile, imperfect, and yet extraordinary. We must reflect on this. With that, the ships ascended higher into the atmosphere, retreating from Earth's surface but not disappearing entirely. In the silence that followed, Elena realized the battle wasn't over. But for the first time, humanity had forced the HFY Luminaries to question everything they believed, and in that questioning lay the seed of change. The days following the trial with Maya were a strange blend of tension and cautious optimism. The Luminaries' fleet remained in orbit, their glowing forms distant but watchful. Their parting transmission, you are fragile, imperfect, and yet extraordinary, had left humanity both relieved and uneasy. While the aliens seemed to have retreated for reflection, no one knew how long this reprieve would last or what conclusions they might reach. Dr. Elena Vasquez found herself caught between hope and dread. On one hand, the experiment had shown undeniable progress. The Luminaries had glimpsed the depth of human experience and appeared shaken by it. On the other hand, their acknowledgement of humanity's extraordinary nature didn't guarantee safety. If anything, it raised new questions. What did the Luminaries truly think of them now? Were they impressed or intimidated? In the underground facility, discussions grew heated as teams debated the next steps. Some argued for continued diplomacy, proposing more controlled interactions like the one with Maya. Others pushed for defensive measures, fearing the Luminaries might see humanity's defiance as a threat worth eliminating. Elena leaned toward diplomacy, but she couldn't ignore the growing sense of urgency. Reports from around the globe painted a troubling picture. In remote areas, people claimed to hear whispers in their minds again, gentler this time, but persistent. Entire villages reported waking up to find glowing symbols etched into the ground, intricate patterns that pulsed faintly before vanishing. It was as though the Luminaries were experimenting, testing boundaries without fully committing to action. What worried Elena most was the psychological toll these encounters took on individuals. Many who experienced them described feelings of isolation, as if the aliens were probing not just their bodies but their very souls. Humanity's resilience was being tested, not through force, but through subtlety. Amidst the uncertainty, humanity's unity began to falter. The initial wave of global cooperation gave way to fractures as governments clashed over how to respond. Some nations advocated for preemptive strikes against the fleet, arguing that showing strength might deter further aggression. Others insisted on maintaining peace, believing violence would only escalate the conflict. Social media became a battleground of opinions, with hashtags like #MonFightBack and #StayHuman dominating feeds. Against this backdrop, Elena received an unexpected visitor. Lars Johansson, the Norwegian fisherman who had faced down a Luminaries entity weeks earlier. Now a reluctant symbol of resistance, Lars had traveled to Washington, D.C. to speak with the scientists leading Earth's efforts. "They're learning," Lars said bluntly, his weathered face lined with worry. "Not just about us, but from us. Every time someone fights back, every time we stand our ground, they see something they don't understand. Strength isn't just in weapons or words, it's in refusing to give up who we are." His words resonated deeply with Eleanor. She realized that while humanity's diversity sometimes led to division, it was also its greatest asset. Each culture, each individual brought something unique to the table, something the Luminaries could never replicate. Inspired, Eleanor proposed a bold initiative: Project Resonance. Instead of waiting for the Luminaries to act, humanity would take the lead. Using technology developed during the trial with Maya, they would broadcast a series of immersive experiences directly to the alien fleet. These broadcasts wouldn't just showcase art or emotion, they would immerse the Luminaries in the full spectrum of human life. From bustling city streets to quiet mountain trails, from moments of joyous celebration to heart-wrenching grief, the project aimed to create a living tapestry of existence. Volunteers worldwide contributed footage, sharing slices of their lives with the hope of bridging the gap between species. As preparations for Project Resonance gained momentum, so did signs of unrest among the Luminaries. Their fleet shifted, erratically, forming patterns that suggested agitation. Whispers in people's minds grew louder, more insistent. Some interpreted this as a warning. Others saw it as evidence that the aliens were losing patience. Then came the incident in Rio de Janeiro. During a massive festival celebrating human creativity, thousands gathered in the city's iconic Sambadrome to dance, sing, and express themselves freely. Midway through the event, the sky above lit up, not with fireworks, but with the unmistakable glow of the Luminaries fleet descending closer than ever before. The crowd froze, unsure whether to flee or stand their ground. But then something remarkable happened. A group of performers stepped forward, holding aloft banners adorned with messages written in multiple languages. "We are human, we are here, we are enough." Others joined in, raising their voices in song, a haunting melody that echoed through the night. The Luminaries hovered silently, their forms flickering as though reacting to the display below. For several tense minutes the scene hung in balance. Suddenly, a single beam of light shot down from the fleet, enveloping a young dancer named Sophia. Her friends screamed, rushing to pull her away, but Sophia stood frozen, her body bathed in radiant energy. When the light faded, Sophia collapsed to the ground, unconscious but alive. Around her neck hung a glowing pendant shaped like a spiral, an emblem of the Luminaries. News of the incident spread rapidly, sparking outrage and fear. Conspiracy theories erupted online, accusing the aliens of marking humans for future possession. Yet when Sophia awoke hours later, she described her experience not as an invasion, but as a conversation. "They showed me possibilities," she said weakly, clutching the pendant. "Not just for them, but for us. They're scared too, scared of losing themselves, of becoming less." Sophia's words sent shockwaves through the scientific community. If the Luminaries were afraid, then perhaps their obsession with human vessels stemmed not from arrogance but from desperation. Back at the facility, Eleanor stared at the holographic map of Earth, her mind racing. Humanity's defiance had forced the Luminaries to confront their own vulnerabilities, but understanding wasn't enough, not yet. To truly change the course of this encounter, humanity needed to show the aliens not just who they were, but why their imperfections mattered. The climax of Project Resonance loomed ahead, a final attempt to bridge the divide. As the countdown began, Elena felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. This wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about proving that humanity's flaws were its greatest strength, and somewhere above, the luminaries watched, their collective consciousness teetering on the edge of transformation. The night of Project Resonance arrived, and the world held its breath. Across every continent, humanity came together in an unprecedented display of unity and creativity. From bustling cities to remote villages, people gathered under the stars, their faces illuminated by glowing screens broadcasting live footage of the event. The Luminaries' fleet hovered silently above Earth, their radiant forms casting soft light over the planet, like a cosmic audience awaiting the performance of a lifetime. In the heart of New York City, Times Square had been transformed into a massive, digital canvas. Giant LED screens displayed real-time images of human life from around the globe, children laughing in playgrounds, farmers tending fields at sunrise, artists painting murals on crumbling walls, families sharing meals under flickering candlelight. Each scene was accompanied by music, a symphony of sounds ranging from orchestral crescendos to simple melodies played on handmade instruments. But this wasn't just a broadcast, it was an invitation. Using advanced technology developed during Maya's trial, scientists transmitted not only visuals and audio, but also raw emotional data, captured through neural interfaces worn by volunteers worldwide. Every heartbeat, every tear, every burst of joy or pang of sorrow was sent directly to the Luminaries' fleet, creating an immersive experience designed to immerse them fully in the essence of humanity. As the transmission began, the air seemed to hum with anticipation. Elena stood in the control room of the underground facility, her eyes fixed on monitors tracking the aliens' response. At first, there was silence. Then, slowly, the fleet reacted. Their glowing forms shifted and pulsed, in sync with the emotions flowing toward them. Patterns emerged in the sky, intricate shapes that mirrored the movements of dancers below. It was as though the Luminaries were trying to mimic what they saw, reaching out tentatively to connect. Halfway across the world, in a small village in India, an elderly woman named Anjali sat cross-legged beneath a tree, her hands resting gently on her knees. She had volunteered to wear one of the neural interface devices, offering her memories and emotions to the project. As the broadcast reached its peak, she closed her eyes and recalled a moment decades past, the birth of her first child. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she relived the overwhelming flood of love and fear that had filled her heart that day. Far above, the Luminaries' fleet shimmered brightly, responding to Anjali's memory. For the first time, they didn't just observe, they felt. And what they felt was profound. Meanwhile, in Rio de Janeiro, Sofia, the young dancer marked by the Luminaries days earlier, stood once again in the Sambadrome, surrounded by thousands of others. Clutching the glowing pendant around her neck, she raised her arms to the sky and began to move, her body swaying in rhythm with the music. Around her, others joined in, forming a living wave of motion and color. Above them, the Luminaries descended lower than ever before, their forms merging into a single, massive spiral of light. A voice, not telepathic this time, but audible, resonating, through the atmosphere, spoke words that echoed across the globe. "You are everything we have lost," the crowd gasped, unsure whether the statement was praise or lament, but then the voice continued. "Your impermanence gives meaning to your moments. Your fragility makes you strong. We sought immortality, but perhaps we sought emptiness instead." Elena watched the monitors, her heart pounding. The Luminaries weren't just acknowledging humanity's value, they were questioning their own existence. This was more than a breakthrough. It was a revelation. Back in the control room, Priya Patel leaned forward, her fingers flying across a keyboard. "They're learning," she whispered excitedly. "Look at the patterns. They're mirroring our brainwaves. They're trying to understand us on a deeper level." Indeed, the Luminaries' fleet now moved in perfect harmony with the rhythms of human emotion. When laughter erupted in Tokyo, The ships pulsed with bright, joyful light. When mourners gathered in Paris to honor those lost, the fleet dimmed, casting a somber glow over the city. It was as though the aliens had become conduits for humanity's collective soul, reflecting back what they absorbed. Yet, amidst this connection, a new challenge emerged. One section of the fleet suddenly flared brighter than the rest, breaking formation and hovering ominously over Johannesburg. Panic rippled through the crowd below as whispers filled minds. You resist because you fear losing yourselves. Yet you offer us glimpses of what we lack. Is this fairness or cruelty? Elena realized the luminaries were grappling with internal conflict. Some among them understood humanity's perspective, while others still clung to their original goal of claiming human vessels. The division within their collective consciousness threatened to unravel everything they had achieved so far. Desperate to prevent escalation, Elena made a bold decision. She initiated a direct transmission addressing the luminaries personally. 2. Lose oneself is not strength, it is loss. To embrace who you are even when it hurts is courage. You do not need us to survive. You need us to remember. Her words hung in the air, carried not just by technology but by the weight of sincerity behind them. For a moment, there was silence. Then, the rogue section of the fleet dimmed, rejoining the others in a unified spiral. A final message came through, clear and resolute. We will leave your world. But we take with us the truth you have shown us. Perhaps we too can find meaning in our imperfections. As the luminaries' fleet ascended higher into the atmosphere, their forms grew fainter until they disappeared entirely, leaving behind only the faintest trace of light. Below, humanity exhaled collectively, tears streaming down countless faces. Elena stepped outside the facility, looking up at the now empty sky. Though the aliens were gone, their presence lingered in the hearts of everyone who had witnessed the encounter. Humanity had faced an existential threat and responded not with hatred or violence, but with empathy and resilience. And somewhere in the vastness of space, the luminaries carried with them a newfound understanding that true immortality lay not in escaping mortality, but in embracing the fleeting beauty of life itself. The departure of the luminaries' fleet left Earth in a state of quiet awe. For days, people around the globe gazed at the skies, half expecting the glowing ships to return. But they didn't. The aliens had truly left, taking with them not just their physical forms, but also the lessons humanity had shared. In their absence, the world began to heal. But it was a different kind of healing. This wasn't about rebuilding after destruction. It was about rediscovering what it meant to be human. Dr. Elena Vasquez stood on the rooftop of her apartment building, staring up at the night sky. The stars seemed brighter now, as if the encounter with the luminaries had reminded humanity of its place among them. She thought back to everything that had happened, the fear, the unity, the courage, and marveled at how far they had come. Humanity hadn't just survived, it had thrived under pressure, proving that its greatest strength lay in its ability to adapt, connect, and endure. Across the planet, life slowly returned to normal, but with subtle changes. Nations that had once been divided worked together more closely than ever before, driven by the realization that global challenges required collective solutions. Art flourished as people sought to capture the emotions stirred by the alien encounter. Paintings, songs, and stories poured forth, each one celebrating the beauty of impermanence and the resilience of the human spirit. In Rio de Janeiro, Sophia became a symbol of hope. Her glowing pendant, now inactive but still radiant, was displayed in a museum dedicated to humanity's interaction with the luminaries. Visitors from all over the world came to see it, marveling at the artifact that represented both fear and understanding. Sophia herself traveled extensively, speaking to crowds about her experience and reminding them of the importance of staying true to themselves. "We showed them who we are," she often said during her speeches. "Not because we wanted to win, but because we refused to lose ourselves." Meanwhile, scientists continued analyzing data collected during Project Resonance. What they discovered astonished them. The luminaries hadn't merely observed humanity, they had absorbed fragments of human emotion, embedding those memories into their collective consciousness. Some researchers speculated that this emotional imprint might influence the aliens for generations to come, shaping their evolution in ways no one could predict. Elena found solace in this idea. Though the luminaries were gone, their journey towards self-discovery was likely just beginning. Perhaps in time they would learn to embrace their own imperfections, finding strength in vulnerability, much like humanity had done. Her thoughts turned to Maya, the brave young girl who had volunteered to host a Luminaris consciousness. When Helena visited her weeks later, Maya smiled brightly, showing no signs of lingering trauma. Instead, she spoke of the experience with wonder, describing it as a dream where she felt both infinite and grounded. "They saw through my eyes," Maya said softly. "And I think maybe I saw through theirs too." Elena nodded, realizing that the exchange had been mutual. Humanity had given the Luminaries a glimpse of what it meant to live fully, but in doing so, they had also gained a deeper appreciation for their own existence. Months passed, and the memory of the Luminaries faded into legend, yet reminders of their presence remained scattered across the globe, in the glowing symbols etched into fields, in the whispers some claimed still lingered, in quiet moments, and in the stories told by those who had encountered them. These remnants served as a testament to an extraordinary chapter in human history, one that would inspire future generations to cherish their uniqueness. On a crisp autumn evening, Eleanor attended a gathering in Central Park organized to commemorate the event. Thousands of people gathered beneath strings of golden lights, sharing food, laughter, and music. A large screen displayed footage from Project Resonance, capturing moments of joy, sorrow, and unity. As the crowd sang along to a heartfelt melody composed specifically for the occasion, Elena felt a profound sense of peace. At the end of the night, a poet took the stage, reciting verses written in honor of humanity's triumph. "We stood beneath the stars, fragile yet unyielding, our voices carried by winds of change. They came seeking eternity, but found fleeting grace, a truth written in tears, laughter, and scars. And when they left, they carried us within, as we carried them forward, in our hearts." The words resonated deeply, echoing the sentiment shared by millions. Humanity had faced an existential challenge and emerged stronger, not because it had defeated an enemy, but because it had embraced its own identity. Years later, as humanity ventured further into space, explorers occasionally reported sightings of glowing entities drifting among the stars. Whether these were remnants of the Luminaries or entirely new beings remained unknown. But each sighting sparked reflection, reminding those who heard the tales of the day when humans proved that even in the face of overwhelming odds, the essence of life lay not in perfection, but in connection. Elena, now retired, often sat on her porch watching the sunset. Beside her rested an old journal filled with notes from the days of the alien encounter. On the final page, she had written a single sentence, a reminder of what humanity had learned. To be human is to embrace both the light and the shadow within, for it is in their dance that we find meaning. As the last rays of sunlight disappeared, below the horizon Elena smiled, knowing that humanity's story was far from over. It was a story of resilience, creativity, and heart, a story worth telling again and again, and somewhere out there, amidst the vastness of the cosmos, the Luminaries sailed onward, carrying with them the echoes of a species that had taught them the value of being alive.